in our industry. So by show of hands, and let's be honest, how many people understand what a true qualifying assumption is? You guys know how it works in terms of putting it together, okay? Because here's the deal. I'm gonna start off and say the best for last. VA, qualifying assumptions. You could honestly qualify to assume a VA loan without being a veteran. Let me say that again. If you are a veteran and you want somebody to assume your home, they do not have to be a veteran. But here's the catch. If you let somebody assume your mortgage underneath your VA eligibility, you cannot use it again because it's tied to the house. So it's very important that you understand that, because that's huge. Because moving forward, if you want to use your eligibility again, you won't be able to buy that home with 0% down. So know that. Another thing, conventionals. Can you truly assume a mortgage if it's a conventional? No, you cannot. Let me say that again. If you have a conventional mortgage, you cannot assume it. Fannie and Freddie will not allow it at all. I remember when I first got into business, guys, and this is going to blow you away. There was a product or a program where you could actually qualify to assume a mortgage, and you didn't have to qualify. You didn't have to have a 600 FICO score, 800 FICO score. If you had no FICO score, you could actually assume the mortgage. It was incredible. And then about 2 years later, they did away with it. They realized that, you know, this guy got bad credit. He's not going to keep up with the mortgage payments, so we're doing away with it altogether. So this is how it's going to work with these FHAs, guys, and this is like really important. If you qualify to assume an FHA mortgage, that's incredible, right? Because the goal is if somebody has 2.5% or 3%, you want that rate, right? And you also want to get that balance, because if that balance, say, is $300,000 and the value of that home, say, is $500,000, you got $200,000 worth of equity in between, right? The problem is, and this is what people are not sharing, that $200,000 worth of equity, that seller still wants that equity before they allow you to assume the mortgage. Well, how does that buyer pay that seller that equity? Take out a second, right? But here's the catch. That second mortgage, how much do you think they could go up and combine LTV to make up the difference? Exactly. You might be able to get up to 85% loan to value, which means, guess what? Now that buyer still has to put down 15% to get that deal to work. And I just talked to a good friend of mine who works over at a bank. He told me point blank, Arthur, we're not judging anybody below 680 FICO score. Below 680. And here's the deal. If you have a 720, 740 FICO score, you're going to be at 10% interest rate anyway on the HELOC. So imagine if your credit score is 680, you're going to be at 14, 15% interest rate. So it's really important that we educate our buyers, our people, and let them know that these qualifying assumptions, they're great, but the problem is you still got to come up with money to the table to make it work. And people are not saying that. I see it on Instagram, I see it on TikTok, I'm seeing it all over the place. And I just want to let you guys know there's a whole set of issues that's evolving. And the last thing I'll say on this is, how long do you think it takes for you to even get qualified to assume the mortgage? Because remember, you got to go through the current servicer. You don't go through your boy or your girl who's doing the mortgage. It ain't working like that. You got to go through the servicer. And it's taking between 4 to 6 months to even get qualified. 4 to 6 months. I have a good friend right now. They're on month 5 to get it. Month 5. How many sellers are going to wait for that? How many cousins or aunties are going to wait for one of their cousins to assume the mortgage? It's not happening. And then the last thing I want to do, I always kind of like end my conversations with something that's educational. You guys have heard about the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts, right? The families, Rockefellers, they made their money in oil, and the Vanderbilts railroads. Well, here's the deal behind that. Both of those families in the middle 1800s to early 1900s were probably the richest families in the U.S., if not the world. 4 generations in, Vanderbilts lost all their money. Rockefellers to this day are probably still one of the most richest families in the world. And you know why? It's because it's called the Rockefeller waterfall method. And what they did was, a long time ago, they realized that they wanted their wealth to continue on and on and on. So what they did as a family is say, you know what, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take out large insurance policies on each one of us. And as we pass away, we're going to put all that money into a trust. And within that trust, there's a cash value, like a vault. And then each family member, as they passed away, they put all that money in that vault with their life insurance. And then that next generation, what they did was they basically borrowed against that money. But then that generational wealth kept building because that family became larger and larger. Now instead of you having 50 people, you had 100, 200, 300, or taking out $1 million, $2 million life insurance policies. That's what you call with generational wealth. It's about being smart and understanding how can you build wealth over years, hundreds, 200s, 300s years. So it's not about now, it's about the future. Thank you.